Hello, everyone. My name is Nick Infernus, and welcome back to another comic book review. I wish that it wasn't so late because, given what I'm reviewing here, I could have had a much more interesting intro. But that aside, let's talk Shazam. The movie that I've held off from reviewing for, again, at least a month, not because I haven't had time, but because I wanted to wait until I had time to rewatch it. Because first time I watched this movie, the cold open left me so confused that it dampened my experience for the rest of the movie. But watching it again, how does it fare? Well, for starters, let's just call the movie what it is. It's a comedy. It is a clean cut comedy, and it's a damn good one at that. The humor here is just fantastic. A lot of it is slapstick, which you don't see in comic book movies that much because what heroes can you do that with? Well, what about a hero who doesn't know what he's capable of yet? And that's really where a lot of the physical comedy comes from. It's from Billy and his new Shazam persona trying to understand what he's capable of, his abilities and all that, and what him and his new foster brother Freddy do to fully understand these powers, it is very entertaining. And also, it's not just the slapstick that works here, but also like from the personalities and some of the dialogue moments. Like when they do the Shazam family, you see Billy tell the rest of the foster family to say his name, and they all scream Billy and not the Shazam thing. That moment, even during my first viewing where I was confused, that moment was pretty funny, I'll admit that. Now, of course, this is a great comedy, but is this a great movie? Why did I just. Wow, that. Yes, it's a great movie if it's a great comedy, but what does it do good outside the comedy? What about the villain? What about Dr. Savannah and the Seven Deadly Sins? Well, the sins I'll save for later, but Savannah first. The opening scene pretty much sets up his whole motive and character arc. He's someone who, as a kid, was told by both his family and by the wizard Shazam himself that he wasn't good enough. So he dedicates his entire life to finding a way to get back to what I don't even remember what it was called. It was like the Stone of Power or something. This is the Stone of something. When he finally gets back there, he takes the Eye of Sin by force and just completely succumbs to it. And then he gets revenge on his family. And then he goes after Shazam because he's more powerful. So, in a sense, he's someone who wants to prove that he is good enough. He is good enough to, he's man enough to do the hard thing. And, I mean, in general, he's kind of just the power hungry villain, but he wants to prove himself. And I think that's a decent motivation for a villain. It's not one that I'd like to see every movie do going forward, but once in a while, it's pretty nice. Now, when excuse me. Yes. Now, of course, when you're making a comedy, the humor isn't the most one. Well, it is the most important thing, but it's one of the two most important things. You also have to have the heart in there as well. And the heart mainly comes from Billy and his relationship with his foster family, with his foster parents, Victor and Rosa, and his foster siblings. Here's hoping I remember all their names: Freddie, Mary, Darla, Pedro, and Eugene. Okay. Okay, good. I remember their names. Now, I'm not going to lie, Billy is definitely a bit unlikable throughout the movie, especially when, he's constantly running away from foster homes and he's pretty dismissive of his foster family. But throughout the movie, you understand because he wants to find his. Because, like, I think he even says, like, why bother going to foster care when I have actual blood family somewhere out there in this place that I can find? But of course, he doesn't realize how important this foster family actually is until his actual mom rejects him, which, of course, they do try to make it understandable as to why she left him, but I think the main priority was just to show how much that hurts Billy, which works. But when he finds value in his actual foster family, that's when a lot of the best moments of the movie come. When you get the Shazam family, or by the end when he does the whole on all hands on deck at the dinner table. Just seeing him go from this unlikable kid with a distaste for the foster system to someone who actually recognizes the true meaning and heart of family, it makes for a pretty good character arc, especially this second time around when, I wasn't confused. And I'd also like to add that Victor and Rosa are very likable foster parents, and it's very easy to tell that they're trying their best. Like, of course, they've had two of their foster kids run away, with both Billy and Mary's implied to have run away twice. But it's also very understandable why they stayed, because they're very good at what they do. And before I move on to the only real issue with the movie, I just want to talk about the deadly sins, the seven deadly sins, because man, they gave so many craps when making the sins. Their designs, of course, they're all just, they might look like generic elf orc monsters on the surface, but when you really take into account which monster is which sin, it is genius what they do. Like, I actually have all seven of them written out here in my notes, and I'm just going to read them up for you guys. So you have Wrath, who is the angry one, he's always angry and he's covered in spikes. You have Pride, who goes around showing off his massive horns, wings, and especially his extremely long claws during the final battle. You have Sloth, who's this slow hunchback guy who is able to keep his victims from moving using his tentacle fingers, which sounds weird, but okay. Gluttony has this giant mouth that extends all the way down to his stomach so it can be even bigger. Lust is very animalistic in nature and has this long tentacle tongue, like something you'd see in a hentai. I hate myself for saying that. Greed has multiple arms for grabbing things. And Envy is jealous of others, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure he's literally green. Like, he's green in color. So yeah, love the sins in general. As for issues, honestly, even though Billy's relationship with his foster family is pretty good, the foster kids themselves don't make the best of first impressions, and I'd say that the only ones who really stand out as, interesting characters, well, not necessarily interesting characters, but just characters worth caring about, are Freddy and Darla. Darla, of course, has this childlike innocence to her, like, the youngest member of the family would have. And in general, I think the relationship between Billy and Freddy works pretty well with, of course, Freddy accidentally getting himself in trouble with, the bullies and using Billy's superhero form as a cover up. And of course, Billy's not happy with that, so he skips out. It's Freddy who's able to help Billy realize how much of a dick he's being. But outside of those two, none of the others really do much. Eugene's just kind of this awkward hacker kid. Pedro barely has any screen time. And I guess Mary's okay, but her voice acting isn't really. But really, that's a pretty minor blemish on this overall great movie. And yeah, of course, the moment I say that, it's obvious what the rating is. I wouldn't call this I wouldn't put this in the top 3 of the DCEU, but this is still another home run for them. And if I'm being honest, I am really looking forward to the sequel in March. I'm not sure how well the ending sets them up for that movie, but hey, we'll see until then, and you all know I'm definitely going to review it. Anyways, guys, that's going to be it for this review. If you enjoyed, you know what to do. I'm not going to bore you with all that generic crap. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Godspeed.